Welcome to Webinars by Rockwell. This video examines the creation of procedures manual for your office. Webinars by Rockwell offers affordable video presentations focused on the administrative professional career at an affordable price. Webinars are designed to be viewed during your commute, while waiting in line, or during your downtime. Thank you for joining us today. Let's get started. We will be discussing 4 major points today. What is a procedural manual? Why do I need one? How to create one? And why keep it updated? A procedures manual is the outline of how to accomplish your assigned tasks. Its design and format will depend on the type of job you have and the type of tasks you perform. We'll discuss why you need one, how to create it, and how to keep it updated. So what is a procedures manual? It's a guide of how to get your job done. A procedures manual is a notebook or electronic file explaining how you do your job. It provides step-by-step bullet points to accomplish each task, must be very detailed so a stranger can follow, and it's very helpful in audits or reviews for regulatory agencies. What it's not is a place to store your passwords. It is not a place to use individuals' names. It is not generic in any way. It is not private and should be structured for sharing. Let me say that again. It is not private and should be structured for sharing. A procedures manual should be printed and stored in a notebook, not just as a file on your computer. Why? In case you are out of the office and someone needs to do a task that you usually do, they can pull out the book and go to the procedure and complete the task. I don't know about your office, but in mine, sharing other people's files is a security risk. They will not allow you to have access to someone's email, their hard drive, or shared files unless you've been specifically added. When I was hired by the college in 2010, the person leaving the job had moved to another position on campus in the library. The building I was in is next to the library, but she did not feel compelled to help the new person figure out what and how to do the job. She was upset about the hiring of a new IT manager and the loss of the family atmosphere in the department. The new director's job was to clean up the department, weed out the deadwood, and hire competent professionals to do the job properly. Since her cousin was the former temporary CTO, which is Chief Technical Officer, she was upset by this change. Unfortunately, it was at my expense. She left me 2 pages of hand-scribbled notes on how to obtain meter readings on the copiers each month, but I was not allowed to retrieve her spreadsheets to make the charges to the other departments for their copier use. There were other spreadsheets as well for phone calls, long-distance usage, cell phones, and equipment purchases. I was forced to create them by myself without any prior knowledge. So this became my rally cry for anyone starting out or for people looking for advice or best practices. Create a procedures manual. It took me a while to learn all the ins and outs. I was yelled at by our accounts payable person for sending her a downloaded spreadsheet of cell phone bills instead of waiting for the actual official hard copy invoice. I had been directed to do so. I was set up for failure by one individual. He also had me converting quotes from PDFs to Excel or Word documents so I could copy and paste part numbers and descriptions to our ordering system. I found out later it was because he was dyslexic. But that process in 2010 took sometimes 30 to 60 minutes to complete the conversion, and my orders were delayed. I stopped listening to him because he was only steering me wrong. So as I learned through trial by fire, I also created from scratch the procedures manual for that position. I've been fortunate that it hasn't been necessary to use it, and there may come a day when I need surgery, have a car accident, or fall and break a hip that someone may need to use it. In my last position, I had the same scenario and did the same thing. I did need that manual 3 times over 15 years. I had a baby and 2 different surgeries. The temps hired were to follow the manual in order to get things done, and by receiving phone calls during my recuperation, I learned a few lessons on how to prepare a manual. But first, what is a procedures manual? It's a step-by-step, bullet-pointed list for each task that includes a narrative and screenshots. It must be detailed so anyone off the street can sit down and complete a task without asking questions. It is also helpful for audits and reviews from regulatory agencies such as the SEC. While it isn't, what it isn't is a place to keep your passwords. It should not use people's names who are currently in a position, even if they are an institution in the company. It is not generic and it is not private, and it should be created so it can be shared. Why do I need one? It may sound cliche, but you may be hit by a bus. You may need emergency surgery, have a car accident, or as in my case, have an incident with a dog and have a head injury. You may get horrible news that a parent or child is hospitalized. You may need to take family leave to take care of them. You may have a baby or decide to take time off to earn a degree. The scenarios are endless, but I'm sure you get the point. Tomorrow is never a given, there is only today. So it's smart to plan ahead and never need to use it than to put someone in a position of not knowing what to do or how to do it. Don't think of it as a working document for yourself, unless your procedures are extremely complicated and you need to refer to it. Think of it as if you are leaving instructions for your replacement and you are retiring tomorrow. Why do you need a manual? It gives you and your boss peace of mind that if something happens, you can still have your work done for them and they don't have to do it themselves. It may even help while you're on vacation. No one wants to be interrupted during a nice beach vacation to tell someone how to order toner for the copiers. It should stop the emails, texts, and phone calls while you're away. It also gives the temp something to work from and feel confident that they can be helpful during your absence. What a manual will not do is replace common sense. It does not share idiosyncrasies of working for your boss or colleagues. It does not replace your firsthand experience. And now, on top of everything else, anyone can do your job. Just what we needed. Seriously, during my first surgical leave, the person they hired to fill in was so dense, it took me hours to explain things to her after I was off. It's important to realize that I had trained her for 2 weeks prior to leaving and had her doing the job most of the second week with me there to help if needed. I know that job was not easy, and it was in the mid-90s, so computers were not at every desk. I had a Xerox memory typewriter We still answered a lot of phone calls, and our email was internal only. It should have been simpler, right? This was the time I discovered that a fresh person coming into the office, not knowing all the people, makes it worthless to use names in the manual. After this, I changed all the names to titles and realized that it could stand the test of time because people do leave jobs and new people are hired all the time. It wouldn't make sense to change your manual every time someone new was hired, but you also need to add a list of titles and names. I generally included the date they were hired and a few bullet points of what they did in their job, and it was extremely helpful. How do I create one? We start at the beginning. Your manual will be different for each job or industry you are working in. When I worked for the financial advisor, it was task-based for running reports, greeting clients, how to engage the client when the boss was late, how to set up new files. They weren't just straightforward single manila folders. The regulatory rules like confidentiality and keeping all correspondence, even if it was an email saying thank you. When I worked at the church, my manual was laid out by day. It was a part-time position of only 6 hours a day and had a different task due each day. Mondays, I gathered information for the bulletin along with the regular chores of answering phones, going to the post office for the mail, opening and distributing the mail, announcing arrivals for appointments, website management, overall building scheduling and key maintenance. On Tuesdays, I prepared the bulletins and the announcements page, which went into the bulletin on a separate paper. I created templates to allow quicker completion of these tasks. Wednesdays, I printed the bulletins after they'd been approved. Thursdays, either I took the bulletins to a volunteer who was housebound, or another volunteer took them so they could be folded and stuffed. Fridays, I made the large print bulletins and distributed all of them in the specific places in the church. Each day was laid out with the instruction for each task, including where the post office box key was kept and what time of day the mail was ready to be picked up. My job at the college was again task-oriented. How to enter a voucher and requisition, how to maintain the hard copy files, how to take the meter readings, how to do all the chargebacks for equipment purchases, cell phones, postage, the print shop copy jobs. All of these tasks have changed several times in 10 years, so the manual was updated with every major change. Timing of when budgets were due, when payroll is done, what holidays have been off, and shared calendars are used. How we plan the holiday party, it's all in there. You'll want to consider using the same formatting for each page, putting the path of the file in the footer to include the date of the last revision. Print it off so it can be easily accessed by anyone who needs it in your absence. Get granular. Of course, you know your procedures, but writing down each step, including when and where to click boxes on a web page, should be included. Use bullet style instruction. If you ever had trouble with written math questions, this is why you want to eliminate all extra wording. It won't seem rude. I promise. Please trust me. Use screenshots to help a newbie know what they are looking for and where to click. Yes, it is tedious, but you don't have to do the whole manual at one time. Schedule it out for a couple of months to give yourself time to do it well. Always assume the person using the procedure knows nothing about it. Test out the procedure yourself first, then by asking a colleague to try it. If it fails, Make necessary changes. More often than not, you've forgotten to include a step because you're so comfortable with it or it seems obvious. If they get through it without asking questions, then congratulations, you've done a great job writing it. Why keep it updated? To avoid the same problems you had without one. If you came to your job without a manual, you'll understand why it's so important to keep it updated. Updating your manual should be a much easier task than creating one. When your software is updated, just make sure to change your manual. It probably did change how you do the task, and of course, the screenshots will be useless to a newbie. I want to share a story about a young, naive office worker whose long-term office mate had unexpected surgery. Like some of us, she didn't have a manual or instructions on doing these tasks. I will preface this to say it was the 1980s, and we had just updated from the enormous NCR machine that looked similar to a cash register, but had lots of rows of numbers. For the smaller machine, get used to cassette tape and record our sales and accounts payable. In school, I had taken a course given by an IBM employee about data processing, and while I passed the course, I really didn't understand what they were talking about. It was 5 years or more later, and I knew how to enter my sales invoices, including the correct tax codes, etc. But I needed to enter the accounts payable while she was gone. There was a little window in the front of the NCR machine with red numbers that changed as you entered items. You started with the date, hit enter, the number would change. Then you enter the account number and hit enter, and so on. She did show me how to enter her things, but I was so used to doing the sales that I neglected to follow the numbers. Her system had more fields than mine, and I ended up entering 331.84 into the total rather than the date field. At that time, we sent our tape to a bank in another state to process and send back our green and white striped computer paper reports. It took the boss's wife a couple of weeks to decipher what happened and why we had the date showing up in all the wrong places. To this day, I still say, if she had a printout of how to enter, I would have done a better job. So the pros of keeping it updated are if you are hit by a bus, need emergency surgery, or out for any reason for any length of time, you have a safety net. If your procedure is 2 versions old for the software instructions, then it's not much use to a new person. Adding new procedures as they are initiated saves from a massive revamp. The cons of not keeping it updated: getting emails, texts, and phone calls asking how to complete a task while you're away. Avoid worrying that the person doing these tasks in your place will do them correctly and according to company policy. You can't provide common sense. Updating frequently takes time away from getting tasks done. If you've prepared your manual by these parameters, you and your replacement should be successful, and you can rest assured that things will be done and done correctly while you're gone. Without a procedures manual, you leave yourself open to vulnerabilities in the system. If you are ever out of the office for a length of time, they give us a detailed guide to accomplish tasks effectively and efficiently and within the parameters of company policies. Imagine life without technical how-to videos on YouTube. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you'll join me on the journey to create a collaborative admin community with social media message boards, comments, FAQs, and panel discussions, along with an excellent content that we will be creating. Watch the announcements for additional services and offerings so you can get started finding solutions and enhancing your skills. Bye for now.